Hi, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Um, Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to basically be a bit awkward because for those of you, if you're Muslim, I'm not sure who's viewing at the moment, is obviously we pray 5 times a day and Maghrib is actually going to be at 6:36. So it's my bad that I should have rescheduled the live to start from 6:45. Because I said 6:30, I'm going to kick off, but at 6:36, I'm going to take a bit of break. But don't worry, I've got a great video that I'll put on so you can enjoy the video, which is a beautiful kind of video, as I said, of the landscape and the wildlife of Pakistan. So while I pray, I will keep you entertained. But without further ado, let me kick off with today's. Now, if you are someone who's kind of watched the previous two videos, my sincere apologies because the first two slides will be a bit of repetition. So today's live feed is all about my Shangrilla and Little Tibet Tour. So I've just noticed my camera's not working. So let me just see why the camera's. Right. So let me just see why. I'm pretty certain I have given permission for my camera to work. But anyhow, I'm not going to waste time. So for those of you who've seen previous videos, you know what I look like. For those of you who don't, just to let you know, this is me, Sadia Barber. So I am the CEO and founder of Xperience Pakistan. The purpose of these live feeds really is to enable me, normally technically, to put a face to an online business, to give you reassurance of kind of, me, my company and what we do, so that you don't think you're just like kind of working with a bot. But it's also for me to basically go through the itinerary of the different tools that we're offering and enable you to ask me any questions you may have, because Pakistan, unlike many destinations, is still a relatively off the beaten track destination. Now that is changing because if you Google Pakistan on YouTube, you'll see that there are a lot of vloggers and YouTubers now visiting Pakistan. So certainly for me, my business, it really helps in terms of marketing material because I do kind of reach out and use their material. And on the kind of the information below this video, you'll see there's a lot of links I've shared with you, so you can see Hunza, you can see Lahore, and a lot more detail in terms of what there is to see and do. So as I said, today's presentation is to cover my Shangrilla and Little Tibet tours and to go through some of the dates that we have got planned. Now, why is traveling so important? Ultimately, because it's one of those things, as much as, it's great to see a large balance in your bank account, the reality that doesn't give you joy. Actually, what gives you joy is the art of traveling and holidays. And for those of us who are fortunate and have the means, it's a fantastic way to build new memories. And it's really kind of, the photo albums that you look, or, your digital reels, that brings you joy rather than seeing that stack of that bank balance going up. So, and I can see that one of the slides is missing. Right. So after this slide, and I'm just going to go ad lib a bit, is just to give you a bit about myself. So Xperience Pakistan was set up in 2018. We are a multi-award winning travel agent. We have won an award for the last 4 years consistently by Prestige Awards for Adventure Tour Agency of the Year. We have also won by SME Business for the Best Customer Service Provider for 2 consecutive years. And there's a number of other awards that we've won as well. The Xperience Pakistan, as I said, for me is not, I don't believe I sell holidays. What I'm doing is I'm inviting you into my country to show you Pakistan through my eyes. And the ethos and the reason why I set Xperience Pakistan up was all about changing perceptions and changing narratives around the country. For me, being of Pakistan heritage and having lived some time in Pakistan as well as the UK, I know that actually the media does it a lot of disservice. When I say media, I mean the mainstream Western media, because the only time you tend to hear Pakistan in the headlines is always negative. That's not to say bad things don't happen in Pakistan, but Pakistan has a lot of good stuff to offer, not just in terms of landscapes, but hospitality, warmth of the people, the culture and food. So for me, as I said, in 2018, I set it upon my mission where I wanted to change perceptions, change narrative, but I also wanted to make Pakistan accessible. Now that has changed slightly, so a few more companies are offering Pakistan as a destination. Back in 2018, the only the only tour travel agent that was offering Pakistan as an experiential holiday was Wild Frontiers, and they continue to do that. And it was one of those things, there was no one else doing it. Now, Wild Frontiers, to be honest, have been very, hi Phil, nice to see you again. Wild Frontiers are great ambassadors for Pakistan, and you know, Johnny Bilby, the founder, is, you know, I know, very passionate and loves Pakistan a lot. But the key differentiating point, I suppose, between myself and Johnny Bilby is obviously I am a single destination provider. I don't cover any other destinations, and that's mainly because I don't want to distract myself by having other destinations. But I also don't just do adventure holidays in terms of northern areas and southern areas. We also do things like food holidays, golfing holidays, shopping holidays, because it's all about immersing you into the culture and showing you Pakistan, as I said, in its entirety. So that's a bit about myself, and I will, if for those of you who would like to see me in person, I will be at the Luxury Travel Show from the 7th to 10th of November in London Olympia, and I'll also be at Destinations London, and I'm debating whether I'll be at Destinations Manchester. So let's kick off. Now, some of the highlights, excuse me if I keep looking at my watch. Hi Phil, I'm not sure if you heard the intro, but I'm going to have to take a bit of a break at 6:38 because it's our prayer time. But don't worry, I will play a video for you to enjoy while I'm praying. So some of the highlights of this tour, I've put this map here because I thought it's easy to explain and give you context. So kind of this is the part of Pakistan that you're covering. So all our tours tend to start in Islamabad. Now, Islamabad, you can actually get a direct flight using British Airways. I always recommend, you know, all the Arab airlines flying there. So that's Emirates, Gulf, Etihad, Oman. And if you have the time and you have the money, I always say it's nice to maybe do Emirates so that you can have 2 or 3 days at the end of your holiday to just relax and enjoy. Because a lot of these itineraries, although they're fantastic and you get to see a lot, they are tiring, and some of the days can be very long. So maybe having like 3 days like by the pool or at the beach at the end is quite a nice way to end your holiday. But that's just my personal opinion and my personal preference. So as I said, we start in Islamabad, and this tour here will go up to Gilgit Hunza. It also goes to Skardu and then back to Islamabad. So it's a bit of a triangle or a circle that you do there. And then actually we cover Peshawar and also Lahore. There are 2 variations to this tour. You can either do it where it's dual destination. So by that, I mean, you can fly into Islamabad and then you can fly out of Lahore. Or alternatively, we have the 15-day tour, where basically you start and end and fly in and fly out from Islamabad. The key difference would be that if you did the 14-day tour, when we go to Lahore, between Islamabad and Lahore, there's 3 places to see: Kevra salt mines, Qatar's temples, and the Rohtas Fort. Now, the reality is you cannot do all three destinations in one trip. So in the 15-day, what we do is on the way to Lahore, we cover Qatar's temple and the Kevra salt mines. And then on the way back from Lahore back to Islamabad, we cover Rohtas Fort. So if you didn't do the 15 days and you did the 14 days instead, basically Rohtas Fort is a key thing that you would be missing out on. Excuse me. Right. So it's 6:40. On that note, if you don't mind, I am going to take a short break just so I can go and pray. But in the meantime, I'm going to put this video for you. Sorry, not this video. Yeah. I hope you enjoy that video. So let's kick off with the tour. So as I said, this here is some of the highlights. I hope from the video of the landscapes, you got a feel of some of the fantastic landscapes on offer in Pakistan. So you'll get to see Hussaini Bridge, Fairy Meadows, Badshahi Mosque, Baltit Fort, the Satpura Lake, which is in Skardu, and Vaga border. Now, my sincere apologies because I have tried to get the camera to work and I'm not sure why it's not working. So in terms of group tour dates, we have got a couple of dates for 2025 and a couple of dates for 2026. Now, please bear in mind that later on when I take you through the prices, those prices are for 2025. They are not for 2026. I think for 2026, if you anticipate and allow about 10%, 10 to 15% increase, but the reality is we won't have 2026 prices until probably this time next year because the hotels don't work in advance. And with the world the way it is at the moment, and macroeconomics playing a huge kind of role in terms of costings of fuel and hotels, etc. Obviously, as you can appreciate, no one can really guesstimate what the prices will be in 2026. So we've got a date in May and a date in September. So the May date, which is the 2nd to 17th of May, we've tried to incorporate the first bank holiday. So that those of you who are working, obviously you can then take one less day of annual leave. And then we've got a date in September. The reason I avoid this tour in July, kind of middle of July to middle of August, is a couple of reasons. Mainly because it's when the domestic the students are in Pakistan, they're all on summer holidays. And as you can appreciate, the northern areas are very popular for people to escape the heat and go up north to cool down. I also find, the latter part of the tour, which is in Peshawar and Lahore, temperatures are quite hot in kind of the summer months. So May and kind of October are nicer times to do it, where the weather's still very nice up north, but it's also pleasant. Pleasant, I say that loosely, because it's still hotter than the UK, but it is pleasant in comparison to the temperatures that Pakistan can get up to kind of in the summer months. Please bear in mind also, like with all of our tours, if you want to do this itinerary as a private tour, you can do this tour privately. You don't have to do it as part of group. We do have iterations for private tours, so you can either do it, as I said, the 14-day tour, which I mentioned in the introduction, or we have an extended tour, which is 19 days. And the main difference is that in the 19 days, you have some rest days, which I'll actually go on to as I start the itinerary. So as I mentioned, all of our tours start in Islamabad. So on day one, you will arrive in Islamabad. Now, depending on what time your flight arrives and depending on how much time you have, obviously we'll kick off the tour. Please bear in mind that check-in is from 2 p.m. onwards. If you check in before 2 o'clock, then an early check-in fee basically applies, which basically means you have to pay for the extra night as if you checked in for the hotel the night before. Many of our clients, what they do is when they arrive at 12, we'll take them back to the hotel so that we can leave the suitcases there. And then we actually just kick off and do the half-day tour and then, take them back to the hotel in the evening so that they don't have to obviously pay the early check-in cost. But obviously everyone is different and it depends on how comfortable you are and where you flew in from. So I can appreciate if you're flying from the US, you may well be very tired versus Dubai or the UK, which are relatively shorter flights. So some of the key highlights that we'll take you to see are the Shah Faisal Mosque. So that image there is of the Faisal Mosque at night. It was a gift from the King of Saudi Arabia. It is, I believe, and I need to check my facts, but the ninth biggest mosque in the world in terms of the capacity of how many people can pray in it. It's a beautiful modern piece of architecture, and I think it's very fitting of Islamabad, which you'll see has got a very contemporary feel. In terms of, I always say Islamabad reminds me a bit of Canberra in Australia. If you've been, it's the way it's been designed is very grid-like, but despite it being at the kind of at the capital city, because you've got the Mughal hills surrounding it, you've got beautiful landscape of green woodlands. I think, and I'm not being biased here, but it's also been written about it is one of the most beautiful capital cities in the world. And then you see the Pakistan National Monument, Damne Gola Sharif Real Museum, and then the Parliament House and President's House, which we'll show you from the outside. So on day 2, we fly from Islamabad to Skardu. So the flights are always in the morning. They're typically around 10 a.m. And because it's only an hour flight, what we find, in fact, you know what, I'm going to just okay. So, sorry, I've just been told that I've removed myself from stage. My audio is also removed. Okay, so on day 2, because it's only flight's only an hour, you'll get to Skardu for about 11 or 12 o'clock, so you still have half the day. So in the half of the day, we'll take you to see Upper Kachura Lake, Kachura Chalk. The picture there you see is of the Shangrilla Resort, and you will see that it's got a very very Chinese style to it, to the architecture. And because of how close Skardu and Gilgit are to China, the Chinese border, you will find that there is a lot of influence from China, both in terms of architecture, but also in terms of cuisine. So there's a lot more like kind of ramen and soup-like dishes that they have with a broth. That's also partly because it's so cold over the winter months that actually, you kind of need the broth to keep you warm. And then we've got the Katbana Desert as well. So Phil, if you're still there, please feel free to ask your questions as we go along. You don't have to wait till the end of the presentation. And if any of you are watching this as a recording and not live, please feel free to either email me with your questions or just put it in the comments box, and then I will kind of refer back to you because I'll keep checking. So on day 3, we have the full day in Skardu. That image there you see is of the Sarfaranga cold desert. It is one of the only deserts, and of course you also have something like this in Nepal for obvious reasons, because obviously both where the countries are located, where we always think of deserts and we always think of the Sahara or hot weather, but this is obviously a desert literally kind of surrounded by snow-capped mountains, so there's quite the contrast. And for that very reason, if like me you love photography, you can get some amazing shots there. We'll also take you to see the Mantal Buddha Rock, the Karpocha Fort, Shigar Fort, and Amburik Mosque Shigar. Now, a few of the forts you'll notice in up north, kind of Serena, which is a very famous hotel chain, mainly in North Africa and in Pakistan, have taken some of these forts and converted them into hotels. They are absolutely stunning with a real heritage feel. But bear in mind, so the prices you'll see later I've quoted are for semi-deluxe and budget. We haven't used Serena. We can use, we can upgrade you and use Serena, but Serena is kind of a 5-star hotel and the most expensive hotel in Pakistan. But as I said, we work with all of these hotels. So if you wanted to go part of the group, but you wanted to stay in Serena, absolutely that's possible, and we can quote you on that. So on day 4, we basically got the day in Skardu, and there are 2 options. Because the group sizes we work with can range from just 2 people to a maximum of 6, and at push maybe 8 people. We find in this way, it's when you've got a smaller group, it's easier to come to a decision. So this is where, before you even fly out to Pakistan, what we'll do is we'll share a couple of links or videos of Kaplu and Disar National Park, and then collectively with the group that we have, if you're going as part of a group tour, we can then decide which of the 2 options you would like to go do. And the reason we can't do both in one day is really time. So what you'll notice here on this slide, I'm going to see if I can just move my camera to the other side. Bear with me a second. Okay, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, so basically just here to let you know, so the drive from Skardu to Kaplu is about 111 kilometers. So it's a 3-hour drive one way. So you are going to spend 6 hours in the car for either of these options. In Kaplu, this image here is of Kaplu Fort, and you can see it overlooks the mountainscape. So again, many of the forts, the Gilgit-Baltistan government has put a lot of effort to restore them, and they are magnificent pieces of architecture if you enjoy architecture and like that kind of stuff. Or then the other option is, if you prefer to see a lot more natural landscapes, we've got the Disar National Park, which is home to the Disar Plateau, the Satpura Lake, the Chotapani Shoshara Lake. And again, as I said, it's a great spot for photography for flora and fauna. You may have seen, if you were watching the video that I put on while I was praying, it kind of, that video did show some of these places. Just to also say that that video is actually not a video that I've made. That is a video that was made for the Pakistan Expo in Dubai a few years ago by a number of different kind of videographers and photographers. So I cannot take credit for that. But as I said, it was made for the Dubai Expo. And I think it's a fantastic way to promote Pakistan. So on day 5, we basically start to leave Skardu and start making our way to Gilgit Hunza. We'll drive along the Hunza River and we will stop at Nanga Parbat viewpoint. One of the nice things about that Nanga Parbat, just to let you know, is I believe the 9th highest mountain in the world. It is also nicknamed as Killer Mountain, and that is because of so although K2 is the 2nd highest mountain, Nanga Parbat is nicknamed Killer Mountain because of, I believe, how harsh the gradients are and how difficult it is to climb. So I think while many climbers have managed to climb up to the top of it, unfortunately, where they haven't succeeded or where the death has risen is on their decline. And as a part of that, I believe, is because of how sharp the gradient is. Not that I'm a climber, but that's kind of what I've read up on it. We'll also go to visit one of the most unique places in the world, where you see the 3 great mountain ranges. So you see the Himalaya, the Karakoram, and the Hindu Kush. We will also take you to see Karga Buddha. So in this image here, you can see that this is a Buddha etched in the mountain. So what people don't know often is that there is a lot of Buddhism history here in the north of Pakistan. You can see it in Taxila. As I said, you can see it here in Gilgit, and that there is. I think there's perception that yes, Pakistan is a predominantly Muslim country. I think 97% of the population is Muslim. However, because of where it's geographically located, because of previous civilizations and rulers, you'll see that there's a lot of there's quite a few temples. There's some beautiful churches. And you've got some, as I said, some remains of Buddhist. So there's been a real influence of lots of different faiths in this region. And then we'll take you to see Raqqa Porshi viewpoint. So the drive from Skardu to Hunza is about 6.5 hours. It's 290 kilometers. But as you can see, it's not a direct drive that we take. There's lots of these different stops that we'll be taking en route. On day 6, we have basically arrived in central Hunza. That image there you see is of Baltit Fort. So there are 2 forts in Hunza. One is Baltit Fort and one is Altit Fort. And both forts are kind of on either side of kind of Karimabad. So they played clearly a pivotal role in the defense system in the times of, when wars took place. Now, Baltit Fort used to be the home for the Prince of Hunza. He now actually lives in Islamabad with his family. And I think about 10 years ago, the province or the government of Gilgit-Baltistan, purchased Baltit Fort, and they spent a fair amount of money restoring it. And it is fantastic. I mean, when we went there is a guide there. So you obviously have the guide that we provide, but you have a designated guide who takes you through the history, and the fascinating in terms of you'll see internally a lot of influence of China, and that's mainly because I think the prince's father or the grandfather married a woman from Tibet, and when she obviously came and they started building the house, she brought in a lot of influences from her culture. We'll also take you to Karimabad Bazaar. Karimabad Bazaar is lovely because if you like, gemstones and jewelries and cashmere shawls, and basically, like kind of tapestries and stuff like that, you'll absolutely love it because there's a lot of handmade products there, and it's kind of it's a great way to support smaller local businesses as well. And then we'll take you to Altit Fort, and then finally in the evening, we'll take you to Eagle's Nest viewpoint in Dukar, which is a stunning, a stunning place to sit and relax at the end of the day and enjoy the view. Now, it does get a bit busy because obviously everyone's trying to go and see the sunset there, so we do try and get there a bit early. And just to let you know, there's about a 10-minute walk from where we park the car to get to the viewpoint. So there is a slight gradient to walk. So I don't think you have to be really fit, but you have to be a decent fitness level, or, if you have problems with your knees or do use crutches, I think it's just something to bear in mind that there's a bit of a steep kind of climb to get to that viewpoint. And unfortunately, cars can't go up there. On day 7, we take you to Nagar Valley and Upper Hunza. So this image here that you can see on the right is actually of Hopper Nagar Valley, and those are that black things are actually glaciers. So they're glaciers that are actually underneath the river. And for those who like to hike, there is actually I think a 2-3 hour hike that you can choose to do. And again, it's one of those things that I always say to all my customers that this is not my holiday, this is your holiday. So I have to, I'm determined to make sure that the itinerary is catered for your needs and not what I think you should do. Let's say, for argument's sake, we have a group of 6 people and there's 3 of you that would like to do the hike and 3 of you that don't. That's absolutely fine, because we can adjust that so that the 3 who want to do the hike can do that, and the other 3 we can take them to the local bazaar or for them to do other stuff, while you're doing the hike. So just because you're part of group, that we like to say that there's we try to minimize the compromises as much as possible within reason. Other places that we'll take you to see is Dung Rock inscriptions, the Attabad Lake, which was actually made due to a natural disaster a decade ago. Now, a decade or a couple of decades ago. I always say to everyone that Attabad Lake is stunning. I don't think the pictures do it justice, because a lot of the times you see some images and you think there's some filters of Photoshop, but actually when you go to see Attabad in real life, the water really is very blue and green, and you don't actually need filters. You can have a regular camera and take great pictures, but it is declining, I think 10 centimeters every year. So this is one of those attractions which is beautiful to look, but is short-lived. It's not an attraction that will be there forever. So it's almost like see it while you can. And then we take you to also Gulmit village. On day 8, we kind of go to Upper Hunza and Gilgit. That image there is of Basu cones. It's one of my favorite shots, because when the sun hits the peaks, it is absolutely stunning. And I think Basu cones also is one of those places I would say it's overwhelming and it's stunning to see in real life. And I've got loads and loads of pictures, and I don't think you get the same feeling or aura as when you're there. And part of it is because I think it's the entirety and how big and how high these mountains are when you're there, and just how picturesque it is. So by Basu Cones, there's a famous bridge by the name of Hussaini Bridge, or also known as Suspension Bridge. It's a bridge that the locals use that crosses across this river, or kind of that's coming down from the glaciers. I think adrenaline junkies go to it because the gaps between each of the plank of the river are quite large, so you have to take quite decent steps. And obviously, because it's a suspension bridge, it is quite shaky. Unfortunately, when we went, they had closed much of the bridge because they were repairing it. So we've got pictures by the bridge, but I couldn't actually go on it and go across. Other things that we see are Batura Glacier Viewpoint, the Borit Lake, Daniel Suspension Bridge, which is an option, and the Garha border. On day 9, we start leaving Gilgit, and basically we go back to Islamabad. So again, the drive from Hunza to Gilgit is about 2.5 hours drive, and then it's an hour's flight back to Islamabad. A big caveat is that because of the airplane used to fly from Islamabad to Skardu is a lot bigger, so the flights tend to be more scheduled and more on time, in terms of there's a higher probability of them basically taking place. Unfortunately, the airplanes used to fly from Gilgit to Islamabad are smaller, and therefore they are a bit weather dependent. The slightest aspect of wind or fog and the flights get cancelled, which is why we have a caveat that if the flight gets cancelled, then we will have a car on to hand to take you back to Islamabad by road. But the difference is that whereas it's 1 hour flight by road, it's a 2 days, because it's about a 9-hour drive from Gilgit to Naran, which is where then we make a stopover, and then the next day we'll continue from Naran to go back to Islamabad, and that's another 9 hours. But as I said, hopefully it won't come to that, and that's why we choose the months of May and September to do this tour, because the probability of weather being good is higher. But obviously I just need to flag that up. On day 10, we go from Islamabad to Peshawar. So Peshawar is my hometown. I will also say that Peshawar is a destination that the FCO has basically advised against travel to. Now, I think personally that's unfair because my whole family lives in Peshawar, so I know that Peshawar is actually very safe. In fact, there was a YouTube video I came across only yesterday, and it was someone who had uploaded it, I think, about 2 months ago, and they were giving their roundup of their holiday and their time in Pakistan. I think they were both. It was a husband and wife from the UK, and their summation, and certainly Peshawar was actually, they felt safer in Peshawar than they do here in the UK. Now, that's completely objective, unbiased, but obviously I need to let you know because it would impact your insurance policies. There are some companies, and I should really know this information, that I think, and I will try and edit and put it in the comments box below, of a company that does cover destinations that are off the beaten track. In fact, yeah, there. So yeah, I'll try and figure out what the name is and let you know. So the key highlights in Peshawar are the Peshawar Museum, the Mohabbat Khan Mosque, Kissa Khwani Bazaar, and the City House. Kissa Khwani, for those of you, just let you know, Kissa Khwani means storytelling. And because of the location of Peshawar, between the Silk Route from China down to the Arabian Sea, often it was a pit stop that many of the traders would stop at and have some green tea and have some snacks. And there they would exchange stories of their travel, hence the name Kissa Khwani Bazaar. Then on day 11, we leave Peshawar and start making our way to Lahore. So that image there is of the Gevra salt mines. So the Gevra salt mines are the second largest salt mines in the world. The first one is in Poland. And as you can see, it's beautifully lit up with lots of different lights. And they've also got like kind of the fort and different monuments kind of made from the salt as well. It's beautiful. It's nice, especially on a hot day when you're there because it's cooler. But again, in terms of the way they've got the lights lit up and the walk around the cave is fascinating. Qatar's Raj Temple is a short drive away from the Gevra salt mine, so that is another stop that we take you to. It is still a temple that Hindus visit, and it is basically, the guide would tell you, so excuse my ignorance, but it is of, I know, significance, where annual pilgrimages do take place at the Qatar's Raj Temple. And now in day 12, Lahore. Now, after Peshawar, I think, apart from the northern areas, I think Lahore definitely for me is a favorite city because I feel, you kind of think about, once upon a time you'd say, oh, London never sleeps. Actually, unfortunately, London, the reality is if you get to a restaurant after 10:30, they're taking last orders and that's about it. Whereas in Lahore, if you're hungry at 1 a.m. and you go, everything is open. Now, the people of Lahore love food. Pakistanis generally love food, but the people in Lahore, the Punjabis, take it at a different level. And you can go there at 3 a.m. and it's buzzing. People are there having their food, having their eating. There is there's a saying, I think, the Lahoris never sleep, and that is so true. I'll also say a fact that sometimes I have people say to me that they would love to go to Pakistan, but one of the things that puts them off is that the spice, that they can't eat Pakistani food. And I always say, doesn't matter. Just like in London, you've got all sorts of cuisines. Pakistan is no different. I mean, we've got McDonald's, Pizza Hut, KFC, so you've got all the American brands, but then you also have a lot of local Pakistani, restaurants who have opened up Japanese restaurants, who've got Chinese, Italian, you name it, European, you name it, Pakistan has it. And what I love about going to Pakistani restaurants is that they are at a different level, both in terms of food, cuisine, but the decor, each restaurant is trying to outdo the other, and the ambience is absolutely amazing. So just, I think, eating in Pakistan is a different experience, which is why I've developed a food tour, which is very much focused about kind of exploring the different food places. But that's kind of another live feed I'll do another day. So in terms of the key attractions that you see in Lahore, the walled city of Lahore, Lahore Fort, which is the image you can see there, the Badshah Masjid, the Lahore Museum, and Anarkali Bazaar. Anarkali Bazaar, I think, is one of the oldest bazaars in Pakistan. It's where you can get really authentic jewelry, authentic clothing, and a fraction of the price that you'll be able to find it in in the shopping centres, where, because it's labelled nicely packaged, you probably find the same thing slightly more expensive. Actually, one of the things that I keep that I've forgotten to say is, as you can see, this is a 15-day tour that I'm going through, but I mentioned to you that we have a 19-day version. So in the 19-day version, the key difference would be that in Hunza, for example, you would have a rest day. So there would be a day where actually we have nothing planned in the itinerary. So you can either read a book, relax, take in the scenery and just go for local walks. Similarly, in Skardu, we have a rest day. In Peshawar, we have a rest day. So again, Peshawar, there's the Islamia College to see. There's amazing antique shops that you can go to. Pakistan, Peshawar particularly is known for its Afghani rugs. So we've got 3 days, and then in Lahore as well, we have an extra day. So that's a key difference between the 15-day tour and the 19-day tour, where actually those 4 additional days are rest days in each of the different locations, enabling you to just ponder and, kind of potter around really. So day 13, that image there is of the Wagah border. I can best describe Wagah border is Pakistan's equivalent to changing of the guards at Buckingham Palace. It's very theatrical, very dramatic, but it is in great spirits. I mean, on one side, you've got the Indian crowd. So I think that image there is facing the Indian crowd. And on the other side, which you can't see in that image, is the Pakistan crowd. It's, I think, as I said, I haven't seen, but I've had some clients who have seen the Wagah border experience from the India side, and then those who have experienced the Pakistan side. And they said the key difference is the Indian side is a lot louder, and that's probably because obviously India's population is a lot bigger, and the crowd, I think, stadium is slightly bigger, and there's a lot more Bollywood dancing, music. Whereas on the Pakistan side, it's less about kind of Bollywood dancing and music. So yes, there's music, but they tend to be more about national anthems, and there's lots of parades and marching takes place. So it's a different form of entertainment. We'll also take you to see the Mausoleum of Jahangir and Noor Jahan. We will take you to the Wazir Khan Masjid, the Shah Imam Shalimar Garden, and as I said, the Wagah border event is in the evening. There's a set time of 4:30 when it takes place, but typically you have to try and get there by about 2:30, and that's because of the nature of it, obviously being by the border. There's security and everything that you have to go through, so that takes time. So therefore, that's why what you'll find is that you'll spend a lot of the time in the evening to do that. Now, in terms of restaurants, there are so many restaurants on offer in Lahore to eat. So you've got places like the Poet, which is an experience in itself. You've also got, which I'm looking to add, is they have actually a night bus tour. So in Pakistan, you have places called Baria towns and Defence. So Baria and Defence are these property schemes, and they tend to be kind of very elitist. So it's where the elite side of Pakistan live. But I know that in the Defence of Lahore, they've got like a mini Eiffel Tower there, because they've got these different attractions, and they're all lit up beautifully. There's a night bus tour there, so there is the option on day 30 in the evening to do that as well. On day 14, as I said, that's kind of, we're ending our time in Lahore. So we kind of leave Lahore and start making our way to Islamabad. And we go to Islamabad via the Rohtas Fort. So that image there is of the Rohtas Fort. There are kind of videos I've shared in the link on kind of the YouTube, where I've saved the information. And they give you a lot more detail for you to be able to see, all of these kind of monuments and places that I've covered from a vlogger's perspective. And on day 15, the tour comes to an end. So, kind of we'll arrange for the airport transfers and kind of for you, to take each of you from back to your respective destinations. Now, if you join this as part of a tour, but you thought, well, actually, I want to have a couple of days because I've got friends I want to visit in Pakistan, or I've got family and I want to do extra stuff, that's absolutely fine. We can help arrange. We can either help arrange, or you may want to do it yourself, any extra nights you want in Islamabad, or if you decide to finish in Lahore to do that, that's not a problem. The beauty of being a small boutique travel agent is that everything is customizable and everything is bespoke. We are not stuck with regimented, kind of itineraries that can't be shifted or adjusted. So what is the price of this now? I think it's so that's the wrong. So in terms of the group dates, as I said, we've got 4 dates. We've got 2 for 2025 and 2 for 2026. The dates are on there. I'm not going to read it out. You can see what those dates are. In terms of payment plans, we have lots of different options. So typically, if you're interested in the tour, now, if you're interested in the tour from a private perspective, then it's a 50% deposit. If it's because you want to go as part of a group, then what we say is actually all you need to do is pay £200. That £200 fully refundable if the group, we don't get enough people and the group tour doesn't go ahead. The £200 deposit really is for us to basically understand and assess, who the serious people are who are committed, rather than people say, yeah, we're interested, and then we'll call them back a few months later saying we've got someone else interested, and that will actually they've changed their mind, or maybe they've booked somewhere else, which is fine. But as I said, that's the only reason we take the £200 deposit, because it helps us really be able to know what the numbers are looking like for a group. And then the balance of the the tour is 8 weeks before. Now, as I said, you can see it all can be split into 3 payments. Now, because most of the times, for security and insurance reasons, I keep hold of your money here in the UK and start paying the hoteliers nearer the time. So I can split the payment into 3 if that helps your cash flow. And one of the reasons I really do it is also because if, God forbid, there's another COVID or there's nothing, it's easier for me to then issue you all refunds if the money's here, rather than if it's kind of in Pakistan. So to give you an idea, in terms of, I'm not going to go through the deluxe, but just to give you an idea, if you were to go for the deluxe, which is a top end package, please bear in mind that the prices I've quoted, or haven't actually quoted yet, will be based on semi-deluxe and standard. So in terms of semi-deluxe, we use the Best Western Premier, which is a lovely hotel in Islamabad. So I would say it's probably about a 3 or 4 star by Pakistan standards. If you're someone who's used to traveling to Dubai in the Middle East, it's probably more of a 3 star. In Shangrilla, we're using Hemel Resort. In Karimabad, we use Off2 Resort. And then in Atabad, in what's called kind of for both semi-deluxe and standard, we use Luxus Hunza, which is beautiful. It's kind of overlooks the Atabad Lake. It is an experience in itself. And then in Gilgit, we've got Ramada Hotel. Islamabad, we go back Best Western Premier. And then in Bashar, we've got Bashar Barracks Hotel. Now, if you were to do, and then so forth, if we were to do standard, then you can see that actually, we're using Hillview Hotel, which again is a clean, comfortable hotel. There is a threshold below which we won't go. And that's mainly because, as I said, my key objective is for all of you to go to Pakistan, but come back as brand ambassadors, not necessarily of Xperience Pakistan, but brand ambassadors of Pakistan, and telling all your friends about how wonderful Pakistan is to go to. And that, I believe, can only be delivered is if I'm using hotels which have a great customer service, but obviously have a hygiene standard where you can stay comfortably. So the kind of, I'm not necessarily going to read out, you can see kind of the different hotels there. And as I said, this video is going to be on YouTube, so you can look at it later on at your own leisure and pause if you wanted to kind of, go on booking.com and look at what these hotels look like. So in terms of prices, so I always say that because we're a small company, we only need a minimum of 2 people for the kind of the group tours to go ahead. That said, it all depends on those of you who've booked, if you can afford. So, so let's start off with, a group of 4 to 6. If you're looking at the standard accommodation, we're looking at about £2,864 per person. And for the semi-deluxe, it's the £3,500 per person. Now, that is obviously if you are deciding, if you're traveling by yourself and you don't want to share a twin room. So this is based on sharing a twin room. If you're by yourself, then there is also, and you want your own room, you don't want to share with a stranger, which is, I understand, fine. But then you have the single supplement to pay here. The prices do not include international flights. Unfortunately, I'm not ATOL licensed, but I recommend to all my clients that if you want to book your own flights, Skyscanner is the best place to go, because it does the whole research for you and comes up with the best, the cheapest options available around those dates. So that's kind of bringing the end of the itinerary. Phil, I can see there's one person here live. Phil, I don't know if that's you, but the next few slides that I'm going to go through are basically kind of frequently asked questions. So I know, Phil, that you joined me last week and the week before that, so you might find this is a bit repetitious. So if you want to ask, before I start off there, if there's any specific questions you've got, I'm assuming that you're still live and still watching, just please let me know. But I'll kick off. Is Pakistan safe? Now, in this, I've shared links which have been uploaded by vloggers because I think that's the best way to answer that question. Because if I turn around and say to you, absolutely, it's safe, you may be cynical and you may say, well, you would say that, you're from Pakistan, or you would say that because you're trying to sell a holiday to Pakistan for us. I say, Pakistan is as safe as the UK, as Brazil, as any other destination. Well, no, I'd argue it's safer than some other destinations. But ultimately, the way to do Pakistan is it's like any place. Be sensible about where you go. We say off the beaten track destinations, but off the beaten track within reason. The tribal areas or some of the tribal areas, zones in Pakistan are off limits. When I say off limits, it's like where the tribes have their own law and police law doesn't prevail. So we obviously avoid going to those places to ensure that we have your security. Lahore, Islamabad, Peshawar, these are all major cities. It's absolutely, especially Islamabad, where because you've got all the embassies, you've got a lot of foreigners there. So it's very safe to walk around. Like any country, you don't go dark alleys. You try and stay where the crowds are. Be sensible about it. I mean, many vloggers that you'll see go to Pakistan by themselves. You don't necessarily need me or a travel agent. However, the benefit of using an agent, whether that's me or another company, is that you have guides, you have team who really know a lot about the country. So it saves you from faffing around trying to figure things out and wasting time yourself. And actually, you really do get to see things that are off the beaten track, because many of my guides, for example, because you have the same guide throughout the trip, they build a very good rapport with my clients. So I've had some of my clients attend one of my guides' niece's henna night. One of my very first clients actually had dinner with the guides and his wife in their home, because there's that rapport. And I think that's a beauty and that's a benefit, because then you really get to see the true Pakistan. And because you are being guided by a local guide, you get a lot of sound bites, a lot of insight in terms of the culture, the history, the politics, stuff that actually, if you were to do it by yourself, you wouldn't get. Sorry, that's a very long-winded way to answer that question. Do I have to wear a scarf? No. Pakistan is a Muslim country, but it is a relatively progressive country. Wearing a scarf is not compulsory. It's common sense that, if you're going to the mosque or religious place, yes, you cover your hair. In Peshawar, if I'm honest, it's like Peshawar is more conservative than Gilgit-Baltistan, Lahore or Islamabad. So when I walk around, I do wear kind of a scarf on my head. I mean, you don't have to wear it tight, just loosely. And I do that mainly because I don't necessarily want to attract attention to myself. That's fine. No problem at all, Phil. Thank you for tuning in. And this question doesn't really refer to you anyway. So as I said, Peshawar is probably the only place in this destination where I would advise, if you're a woman, to just wear a scarf loosely. And as I said, because you just don't want to attract attention, and just be mindful, respectful of the local culture. These pictures are here of previous clients who've been to Pakistan with me, and put those pictures to give you an idea of the kind of clothing they've worn. So you don't have to wear shalwar kameez, you can wear Western clothing. To be honest, you can wear a dress, but common sense, make sure that the dress is like a midi dress or a maxi dress, so you're not showing much of your leg. Make sure you're not wearing sleeveless clothes, or anything with a low cleavage or neckline, so you're not showing your cleavage. Again, making sure that it's loose, it's not figure hugging. Now, there is debate, because there's one of those things that if you see some of the Pakistani fashion, it is kind of quite figure hugging and everything. But I think catwalks are very different to day-to-day life. So I think this hopefully slide would give you a good idea, if you're a female traveler, of the kind of clothes that you can wear. If you are a male traveling, I think it's similar common sense. You can wear shorts, but probably not like very short shorts or very tight shorts. Probably more like knee length, loose shorts are fine. Again, loose trousers, just a loose t-shirt. If I'm honest, sometimes in the heat, you don't particularly want to be wearing anything figure hugging or skin tight anyway. You want kind of, a loose clothing to let the breeze in as well. Is there much on offer for vegetarians? By default, Pakistan is a meat-eating nation. We love our meats. That said, there are vegetarian options available, like lentils, like spinach, like potato dishes. But if it's, we're not specialists, so it's not like, you'll go to a restaurant and you'll find a menu with, it's got full of varied, vegetarian options. As I said, it'll rotate between lentils, kind of potatoes and spinach. Pakistan, however, is a trendy place and it likes to follow the food trends. So I know that, within Islamabad and Lahore, certainly, there are like kind of more, some restaurants, like European restaurants, that are catering for more of a European diet, where you might find a bit more on offer in terms of vegetarian diet. Can I get around Pakistan by myself without a guide? Well, yes, you can. You only have to go on YouTube and see all the vloggers who have done it by themselves. But as I said, it's Pakistan's infrastructure at the moment is not not as good as some other countries. So, for example, if you're staying within Islamabad or you're staying within Lahore, it's easier. You've got the metro bus, you've got the rickshaws. It's easy. But I think because where you've got a multi-city tour like this is, it gets more difficult. I mean, it's again one of those things. Anything's possible. You can book all the hotels, book the flights, and do everything yourself independently. You don't need me, but it depends on how busy your life is, and if you'd rather pay me and I can take all of that hassle out for you and create that perfect itinerary for you, or if you'd rather save the money and do it yourself, that's absolutely fine as well. So to cut long story, or the answer that can I get around Pakistan myself without a guide? Yes, you can. Is Pakistan a cheap holiday? Right. Okay. So it depends. No. So I always say Pakistan is one of those destinations where upfront it's expensive. So the flights to Pakistan are expensive, certainly post-COVID, compared to other destinations. The hotels, the car and everything. Those aspects of the holiday, I suppose that the aspects of the holiday that, kind of where we interact, where you pay me, are expensive, because much like the whole world, kind of the Russian war and the increase in energy price, etc., has also affected Pakistan. And Pakistan, in fact, the inflation is awful in Pakistan. But when you go to Pakistan, so once you've paid for your hotel and your guide and everything, as I said, the expensive part, then when you go to Pakistan, you will find it's cheap. So, and what do I mean by that? So, in terms of food, because part of the reason I'm not sure what it is for the US dollar, but the exchange rate for the rupee and the pound, the Pakistan rupee at the moment, I think it's about 360 or 370 rupees for the pound. So it's really deflated and the pound is very strong. So to give you an idea, my dad and I went to a lovely restaurant. I ordered the most expensive item on the menu. It was a lovely steak with mashed potatoes. So we ordered that, and for two of us with a drink, it worked out to be at £10. And as I said, that was the most expensive item in a nice restaurant. So from that perspective, eating out in Pakistan is cheap. Shopping, to be honest, it depends. As I said, if you go to some of the bazaars and negotiate, you can get some great prices. If you're a woman, for example, and you want to go to some of the branded shops and buy like Sana Safina or Mario B, like some of the really nice couture collections, then it's not cheap. Then you could look for an outfit of anything from £500 to £1,000, to about, I think on average, like an average outfit is probably about £45-50. But if you want something a bit more nice, a bit more fancy that you can wear in the evening, so I bought a couple of items when I went to Pakistan just in May, and they were probably about £180 each. So from that perspective, I said, if you're going to the malls and nicer brands, then no, it's not as cheap as people make it out to be. Because I know there's a lot of YouTube videos that vloggers put up and they say, oh, I can't spend my money, and it's like, oh, Pakistan's really cheap. And I always have to put it in context. It's like if you go to Thailand as a backpacker and do backpacks, then yes. But actually, if you want to do it where you want to go to nice restaurants, you want to stay in a nice hotel, then no restaurant is going to say, don't worry, don't give us money. They will all take your money. So once Pakistan is hospitable, it's obviously the restaurants are commercial. So I just like to manage everyone's expectations, that please don't be influenced by some of the videos out there which gives the impression that Pakistan is really, really cheap. It's not that cheap. When is the best time to visit? So as I explained earlier, for this tour specifically, I always say May or June, or then kind of end of August, September, October, probably not even end of August, September, October. And that is mainly because this tour also has Peshawar and Lahore in it. And Peshawar and Lahore in the summer months gets very hot, whereas in May and kind of end of September, October, although it's still warm, but it's not as hot as the July-August months. So that kind of brings me to the end of the itinerary, and that kind of hopefully addresses and answers most of the questions I would hope that you're thinking. If there are any questions that you feel I haven't covered and you would like answered, think about them. I'm going to put a video on for you to enjoy. It's only a minute. And if you think of any questions while you're watching the video, please put them up. Let me know in the comments box. And if there isn't, then I'll come back and I'll say goodbye until next week. Now, next week, I'm thinking I will cover what our 8/9-day food tour looks like and give you a flavour of the kind of things that we cover off. But in the meantime, I'm going to stop rambling and I'm going to add that video for you to enjoy. So that's that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why my video is not there. So that's me, Sadia Baba. I'm the CEO and founder of Xperience Pakistan, and I've just spent the last hour and 5 minutes talking to you about the adventure of my Shangrilla and Little Tibet tour. I hope to see some of you next week. If you are watching this as a recording, then please feel free to either email me. I will add the banner on again at the bottom so you can see what the email is. So it's info@xperiencepakistan.co.uk, or you can pick up the phone on 0203 150 1444 if you'd like to speak to me in person. Otherwise, as I said, I will be at the Luxury Travel Show from the 7th to 10th of December in London Olympia, or Destinations London next year in end of January. I hope I've answered all the questions. I hope you enjoy that. And yeah, I look forward to taking some of you to Pakistan. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.